All right, so now that you guys have had an introduction of what Stripe and the Stripe Express slash Connect accounts are, we are ready to start creating our code and creating the actual Laravel application to perform this necessary Stripe Express actions. So we're at our terminal right now. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to actually create our Laravel application. So if you go to the Laravel documentation, which I will pull up on my screen in a second, Laravel.com, I think they got a new website, so some of the documentation looks a bit different. I'm dragging that over right now. I don't know why that's so slow. All right, so what the heck? Yeah, I prefer the other website a little bit more, not saying I don't like this one, but it's yeah, so for the Laravel to install, you can either install Laravel and you can use that using this composer command, or you can just create your Laravel project using composer, just saying composer create project and specify that it's a Laravel application and then specify the name. So I already have Laravel installed on my machine. So we'll just go back to our terminal. We'll say Laravel new Stripe Express tutorial. All right, so the application it's creating the application right now. So in the meantime, we can go over to our Stripe dashboard. And so this is my test stuff. I'm viewing my test data. So the first things we're going to want to ensure that we're going to want to ensure that we have our API keys, and you can do that by clicking Developers, API keys, and saving these two keys. And then another thing you will also want to specify if you're new to Stripe Connect, you're going to want to register your Connect profile. I've already done that, and so I just wanted to point that out for you. But what we really want to do is we want to add a redirect URI. I should probably zoom in a little bit. Go to Settings, go to Connect Settings, and then we want to add a URI. I've already added this, but you will want to, if you don't have this added, you'll just want to use your local host on port 8000, and then you want to put the route Stripe right after it. So you can do that by clicking Add URI and then adding that. I've already added it, so I don't need to do that. So yeah, those are the few things you will want to do before you start working with the application and stuff like that. So yeah. So let's go back and we can see the Laravel application successfully installed. So what we'll do is we'll open up PHP Storm. We'll open up Stripe Express tutorial. We'll pull that over here. We'll definitely want to zoom in. So let's go to settings. Go to font size. Okay, my computer kind of froze. I don't know what's going on. Can I not click it? Override fonts. Here we go. My bad. Apply. Oh, that might be a little too much. Let's go with 18. Even then, that's a little too much. Apply. Okay. All right, here we go. So let's look at the Stripe Express application structure. It's following the basic Laravel structure. So we have the app where our heart of the application lies. We have our env example. We got our composer.json. So everything looks like it's here. So we should be able to start diving into what we need to do. So the first thing you want to do is you're going to want to create your database. So let's pull this over. Let's go to say create database. Create database Laravel Stripe Express tutorial. We'll run this query real quick. And I have XAMPP installed. So I have PHP and MySQL installed on my machine. So you might want to do that, of course, if you don't have it installed. So yeah. So we'll run this query. All right. Hopefully reload. See if we can reload. All right, so it created the database for us. So we should be able to add into our env file the Stripe, not Stripe, but the Laravel database. We'll call this, put that here. My username is root. Sulkin is my password. This is all on XAMPP, of course. This isn't actual production credentials. That's too simple. Other things we will want to change. We'll want to change the app URL route. We're going to be using port 8000. When we run this, we'll call this Stripe Express tutorial. Anything else? Oh, we're going to want to add 3 fields in our env, which we'll call Stripe public, Stripe secret, and Stripe connect. Here we are. Anything else we want to specify? Oh, so our session driver will be database instead of file. All right. So I think we should be set for right now. So the next things we want to do is we will want to create our database migrations. So we already have one database migration or 2 database migrations pre-installed for us. We have the users and we have the password resets. We're going to edit the users table, but in the meantime, let's create the actual migrations that we need to create. So we're going to create 3 of our own migrations. So PHP artisan make migration. We'll create a products table. So I take that back. We're going to actually want to create our models. So we'll say PHP artisan make model. Not to make model. We'll call it product. And then we're going to want to create our migration as well. Make migrations. Call this, here we go. We should be straight. So it created our product model, and then it created our products table migration. We'll also want to do this for payment. So make model payment -m. All right, that should be creating. And then lastly, we want to create our sessions table, which is a this command is already created by Laravel. It just creates a sessions table for us. So we'll say PHP artisan sessions table. Oh, we don't want that. All right, so our migration should have been created. So the next things that we will want to do is we're going to want to actually edit those migration files. So the users table is already pre-generated by Laravel for us. The only thing we're going to want to add is we're going to want to add in a user type, because we have 2 types of users on our platform. We have buyers and we have sellers. We'll actually call it a customer, and then we have a seller. And we will want to create a default user or default value, and we'll make the default the customer. So yeah, and the next thing we want to add is the Stripe payment field. So if you're a customer, you need to have a Stripe customer ID. So let's say string Stripe customer ID, and this can be nullable. And the same goes for a seller. They need to have a Express account created so that they can start receiving payments. So let's say string Stripe connect ID, and this can also be nullable. All right, so that's the users migrations. The next thing we want to do is we want to populate our products migrations field or product migrations file. And so what we will do is we're going to add in a foreign key restraint, or foreign key, And that foreign key is going to be a seller ID of the actual product itself. So we'll say seller ID. It's a big integer, that's the type, and then we'll actually assign it a foreign key to it by saying table foreign seller ID references ID on the users table. So if you don't know what's going on, it's just basically saying, hey, we have a seller ID. That seller is a part of the users table, and we're just referencing their ID on that specific users table. So that's all that's happening. So yeah, and then the next fields that we're going to want to add in, we're going to want to add in a unique identifier, and we'll call this UPC, Universal Product Code. And then we'll also add in the product name. So we'll call the string name. And we want to have a price as well, or a price. So we'll say a double, call it price, make 8 total places, and then 2 trailing decimal points as if as regular currency or price formatting. So if you have $25.25, you'd have 0.25 trailing. All right, and additional fields that we can add in that aren't required are the image, the product image, call it string image, and it's just going to be referencing the image URL. And we're going to create a description field, and that description can be massive sometimes, so we'll make it medium text instead of string. And that can be nullable as well. All right, so that is our products migration file. And then lastly, we want to add in the necessary stuff for our payments table. So we're going to have 2 foreign key restraints in this table. So there's going to be a customer ID of the actual payment, and we're going to have the relationship of the product being purchased from that payment. So that payment references the product being bought. So we'll say unsigned big integer product ID. All right. And we will want to actually create the foreign key. Say foreign customer ID references ID on customers, or on users. Customers are a part of the users table. Oh, that's not right. Here we are. Table foreign for the product ID as well. Product ID references ID on products. All right, and another additional fields that we will want to have is we're going to want to have the Stripe charge ID, which is generated by Stripe itself. So we'll make that a string, call it Stripe charge ID. And we want to have the amount paid out to the seller. So that will be a double. Call that paid out. So the paid out funds that they're receiving after we take our fee. It's going to be the same format as price from the products table. And we want to also have the fees collected field, which is just the amounts that the platform is getting for paying the amount the platform is getting on a transaction between a buyer and seller. So we'll call that fees collected, 8 total places, and then 2 trailing places. All right, and just generally you want to have if the payment was refunded, we're not going to add any of that functionality in this tutorial, but just always a good idea to have that in a payments table. So we'll say refunded, or Boolean refunded, and by default it should not be refunded, so say false. All right, so that is our necessary migrations files that we needed to add. Sessions is already preset for us, as well as passwords reset, so that's all good. So if I try to run PHP Artisan migrate right now, I will probably get an error because my local MySQL version is less than 5.7. And so I will probably have to change the char set and the coalition as well in my database config file. And so just to give you an example of what happens when I try that, let's say PHP artisan migrate, I will get an error. And so yeah, this is a common error seen when you don't have the proper MySQL version. So we can combat that by just going to our config file or config folder, go to the database file, and we will edit our MySQL array, and we'll just say the char set and the coalition should be changed to the following. Oop, that's not right. Copy this, place it over here. All right, so yeah. And so let's do PHP artisan migrate fresh. All right, and so our tables have been migrated. Let's pull up our database application. And as you can see, we have our migrations, password resets, payments, products, sessions, and users as defined in our migrations. And so if we look at the actual data, there shouldn't be any data, but the structure should be the same as our migrations files. So that's everything in our migrations files. And the next thing that we will want to edit is our models. So the models will just include everything that we specified in the migrations files. So let's go to our app. Let's go to the model. So the first model we'll edit is user. And so it already has some preset values for us, but we're going to want to add a few things. So we're going to want to add in the user types. So there's two types, call it customer, specify that at the top using constants, customer, seller, and seller. All right, next thing we want to do is we want to edit our fillables array. So we have 3 additional fields that we need to add in. So there's type, the user type, Stripe customer ID, and Stripe connect ID. All right, so that's been added. All right, the next thing we want to add is some relationships. So a user can have many products, or a seller can have many products, and we do that by saying products return has many, specify the class, which will be product, and the foreign key is seller ID, and our local key from this file is using the user ID. All right, and lastly, we want to also add in that a user can have many payments. And that will follow the same format. Has many payment class. The foreign ID is customer ID, as we specified in our migration, and local key is ID. All right, so that is our user model. The next model we want to edit is our product model. And so product will look, so I think we might have to specify table. I don't know if we need to. I will just do it just in case. So let's just say products. I think Laravel does it by default, but I've been using Lumen for so long that I don't know if there's a difference between the two, but I've had a few errors where if I didn't specify the table, I would get, a lot of errors. So I'm just going to do that just in case. So tables, and then we want to specify the fillable, and we have a few. We're going to have seller ID. We're going to have UPC. We're going to have the product name, product price, a product image, and the product description. If I can spell description right. Oh, here we go. And we're going to have a relationship, and that's going to be the seller of the product, and it will belong to a seller or belong to a user. So we'll say belongs to the user class, and the foreign key will be seller ID. All right, and so that's our product model. And lastly, we will want to edit our payment model. So we'll call it table payments. All right, the fillables will include the following. Move that. Payment we'll say there's customer ID, there's product ID, there's the Stripe charge ID, there's the amount paid out, and there's the amount, the fees collected, and lastly, there's refunded. We want to add a cast, just making, casting the data from the database to PHP native code. So we'll say protected cast, and the only cast will be refunded is Boolean type. Boolean. I can't spell Boolean right. Boolean. Here we are. And so there's going to be two relationships as we specified in our migrations, two foreign keys. So there's going to be customer that has one customer, or has one. Here we go. User class, and the foreign key is customer ID. And lastly, we're going to have a product for that payment. Return has one product. Class, and the foreign key is product ID. All right, so this video is getting a bit long. We're already at 21 minutes, so we're going to split up, this tutorial into a few sections. So we've already done the configuration so far, and we've done the actual migrations and the models piece of the tutorial. So I think the next thing we will focus on is we're going to start hopping into our views and our controllers. So stay tuned.